Like Chuck D, I shut him down. As we continue with flavor. Like Chuck D, I shut him down.
Plus an attitude like Tupac got.
Yes, a ghetto soldier.
I got an S on my chest.
And what were the charges?
I was charged with 2 misdemeanors, I believe, in the 4th degree. 1 criminal sale, 1 criminal possession of marijuana, and 2 felonies, Class B felonies, both criminal sales of cocaine.
So it wasn't any violence involved with it, it was just possession and things of that nature. And you spoke to me and told me that they did not have, or that you didn't have information on exactly what they found.
No, it took me a very long time to find out. Still to this day, I've been asking my attorney since it started, you know, for this so-called map hearing, which I heard of, where I could find out the evidence, and she's telling me it's not necessary. You know, I don't think that they have anything on you, but once again, I'd like to know exactly why I had to go through all this. You know, it had been something that they so-called had on me for me to actually have to go through this from the job.
Okay, so after you went to the court system, they set the bail. What happened after that?
I was taken to the back, and that's actually when the mental abuse and the verbal abuse started. I mean, once I hit
from who, the inmates?
No, from actually the I guess those were the court officers. You know, it just I felt like a criminal from that point on. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that's what they were meant to do. Just how they told you, go this way, go that way. Y'all can't listen. You know, you're hard of hearing. You know, that's the problem with you guys, and you know, just things of that nature.
Dehumanizing you, getting you prepared for the process. And at that point, I assume they took you to Rikers Island at that point. And were you searched at Rikers Island? Did you go through a strip search and things of that nature?
While I was in Rikers Island, the house that I was in got raided 3 times. Most of the people who were in there were all in there. Most of them were from the indictment. So I guess that house was supposedly, you know, we were hiding drugs or whatever the case may be. So yeah, it got raided 3 or 4, probably 3 or 4 times.
And a raid, in a situation in a raid, just for those of you who are watching, you do not want to go to jail. You do not want to go through this situation because these raids are very, very dangerous. And if you are a victim, you will end up in what is called a why me pen, and you could actually be put in a hole for months just because you were involved in a fight. And that means you'll be alone for a very long time in a very, very small cell. For however long they feel deemed necessary. So could you describe exactly what happened during these 3 raids?
Well, the first one,
the
first one was actually the worst one. I just remember being woken up out of my sleep, people standing there with batons and flashlights and saying from every sheet to every clothing, remove it. As I was removing the sheets and stuff from my cell, I took a peek out the door and seen dogs and I mean, the cops had you know, the shells and the guns drawn, the Uzis, and it was almost like a scene out of Oz or
they had
something
good
like
guns in the precinct, real guns.
I'm so they're
probably not live ammunition.
Okay,
they're probably some kind of stun weapons or something like that. They're not to have live ammunition in the jail.
Either way,
unless in an emergency situation where they have a jailbreak or something like that. Now, let's talk about how you got out. What were the circumstances that got you out of jail, and where are we now with this situation? Also, we want to talk about the housing, how housing treated you, things that's going on with housing, and also your children. At this point, you're at the precinct, you're a mother, I mean, not at the precinct, you're in the jail cell, you're at Rikers, you're in a house, a dorm, or whatever, and your children, what's going through your mind with regards to your children, and what type of information do you have right now at this point about their whereabouts?
Okay, well, fortunately, the day I got arrested, I was smart enough and lucky enough to have my aunt take temporary custody of her because I knew what the system, would follow the system when it come to remove my child. So I very quickly got on to have my aunt take temporary custody of her. Like I said, she's fine. I'm very lucky to not have her in the system rather than have her.
So she never was picked up by ACS at that point?
Yes, they came to remove her.
They came to remove
yes,
her. What happened then?
Being that I had my aunt take temporary custody of her, they couldn't remove her from her home.
Okay, so good. So at this point, I guess ACS is monitoring the situation. Let's talk about that. How are you being treated by ACS? Well, I know you got out at a certain point. You got out on bail?
Definitely. I bailed out April 7th.
Okay.
I bailed out
April 7th. So that was 7 days in the system.
Correct.
From the 1st to the 7th, which is technically 6. It was in the morning. And so you're out on bail. Your children are aware now once you got out. They're with your aunt?
Yes.
Okay, now, how did ACS treat you at this point? What was the situation in the relationship between the ACS workers and yourself? How was it?
Well, that's actually the worst part of the whole situation. I had to constantly remind them that, I haven't been, criminally charged with anything. Well, I've been charged, but I haven't been convicted of any crimes or anything like that. And I had the whole idea, like, maybe if y'all would treat people like this who've been convicted of crimes, and the way they made me feel like I was a child molester or something. They gave me a temporary order of protection where I can't see my child unless it's around ACS, and I can't go to her school. My mother, actually, who's still incarcerated, has a permanent order of protection against her only granddaughter, who she can't see her period, not even around ACS discretion. And that's basically the situation of it all. They're telling me, your family court case depends solely on your criminal court case. Guess if they drop your case, we'll ease up a little and, give it. But the part that concerns me is that they pushed my family court date so far now to about the end of July, to where, I have all this time that I'm just moping around, sitting around wondering what's going to happen with the situation.
So you're able to go to your aunt's house, which is where? Is it
Ocean Village.
Ocean Village. Okay, so that's not too far from here. And you're able to go see your daughter is it limited visitation rights, or is it you can go anytime you want?
It's supposed to be on the ACS discretion, meaning my aunt, whenever she's around, I'm not able to take her anywhere, which is actually degrading as well. I can't take her to the store.
You can't take her outside?
I can't take her to the park.
So she's on house arrest?
Pretty much, unless, my aunt
takes her.
They're like, we're still in the park sometimes, on the boardwalk, but it can never just be me.
It's not the same as it was before.
Tell what happened in the school.
Yeah.
Oh, now in the school, is that related to the arrest situation?
I'm assuming that when we got arrested, I'm pretty sure the school heard of it.
Oh,
and I've been treated. Yes, I've been actually treated horribly ever since then. Just 3 days ago, I believe on Tuesday, she had a little stop the violence movement, little situation going on. She had an award ceremony 2 days later.
Slow down.
I'm sorry.
Listeners need to know.
Yeah.
She's a little fast talking.
Yeah.
You gotta slow down.
Sorry about that. On her stop the violence movement, I was actually told by one of the security officers that I couldn't sit so close to my child.
And this is an event that was taking place
in the auditorium.
In the auditorium,
Correct.
Stop the Violence at 105.
Correct.
105.
Correct. Which I didn't really take too much to heart. I just moved back. I assumed maybe I was a little too close, not thinking that this was personal. 2 days later, she had an award ceremony on Wednesday. It was about Wednesday. She had an award ceremony, which I attended by myself. Which I don't know, maybe I wasn't supposed to, or however it go, because like I said, I was supposed to be there under ACS discretion. I had officers treating me basically like a criminal. I had them coming back and forth in the auditorium, whispering to her teacher, whispering to the principal.
Oh,
and about 5 minutes later, I was told I had to move 5 seats back for my daughter. They removed her from the seat she was sitting in and moved her a seat.
In front of everyone?
In front of everyone. And they removed her and moved her next to her teacher, the seat right next to her teacher.
That's totally unnecessary. I'm sure it was a very family-orientated situation. They could have monitored it, made sure that you didn't take your child if that was the case.
And the child is not being abused.
That's not, it's not that type of situation. You're in front of all these people and they're just like talking to the teacher in front of the people,
Not to mention,
telling you to step back, go back 5 seats, so you had to get up. Now, everybody watching, you just imagine if that was you. Someone telling you, step away from your child in front of a whole auditorium of parents and children during a Stop the Violence event.
And she gracious.
And they are violently approaching you in a verbal manner and tormenting you, and if that's not spiritual
themselves and cocaine.
beat down, if you will. I mean, that's just terrible. You know,
And the way she handled it was perfect.
oh, let's talk about your reaction.
Yes.
Well, you know,